Thank you. I'm Jeremiah. I worked with the city of Calgary as an urban forestry technician. And we're going to be looking at the vulnerability of Calgary's urban forest in response to densification and development. So buckle up. Here we go. We got a lot to do. We're going to fly to Calgary. There it is, in Toronto. Just some quick background on Calgary. Over 330 days of sunshine on average a year. We are the blue sky city. The canopy is around 8.25%, with a goal of 16% by 2060. This is indicative of the ecoregion we're in, whereas in Toronto, it's a goal of 40% by 2050, just so we have some context as to the effects that are shaping our urban forests. We have a limited tree species because of this that we can plant. It was formerly mixed grassland. We have slower regional growth rates. Our trees do not grow as fast in Calgary. And we have Chinook winds, which is a warm wind coming over the mountains that changes the temperature rapidly, up to 30 degrees, and that's year round. So the Chinook winds also affect trees and what can grow. Not all trees are resilient to these Chinook winds. As you can see on the left, the historical photo, a lot of trees originally only grew mostly along the riverbank and then in infrequent copses. So we're looking at trembling aspens. Whereas in time, the city's actually been able to establish an urban forest canopy. Trees are good. We need them to make our cities livable. We're going to be looking at the life cycle of a neighborhood. I want to focus on communities that have established their trees. So we're going to be on this side. Communities that are over 50 plus years and they've been able to establish their tree canopy. The neighborhoods in this study all meet the current canopy targets. As the city builds out into farmland and grassland, that's what is bringing the average number down. So it takes time to establish a tree canopy. As the population of the city grows, we have to understand that densification is required. Otherwise, we're going to continue to sprawl and build out into these natural areas. So we need to find ways to increase our human population within the existing footprint of the city. Densification does make transport easier, and it intensifies the use of existing infrastructure, such as roads, hospitals, buildings, etc. Our study objectives: has infill development affected tree planting space in Calgary? We're going to be looking at plantable space. Do the housing density build types have different impacts on planting space? So from low density to high density, what are we looking at? And then if so, how do we balance densification and planting space? This is not a new study. A lot of studies have come out in other municipalities about the ecological impacts of densification. The list here, where Calgary has an opportunity as a younger city established in the late 1800s. This is something where Calgary would have the opportunity to become a leader in balancing ecological components with a densification initiative. So the four types of residential housing we're going to look at is a single detached, so that's one dwelling unit, a semi-detached, which is two dwelling units, a row house, which is four dwelling units, and then finally the multi-residential, which is more than four housing units. The public one-stop service. So I pulled the data from this system. I was able to look at the development permits by year, by type, and then within the neighborhood, and then randomized in Excel for my sample set. Within this system, I'm able to pull RPRs, site block plans, and additional information that I needed for the study. The study plot and sampling design. The plots were divided evenly between 2015 and 2019. And the reason I wanted to look into the past is it allows time to assess the as-built conditions as opposed to just the planning. So how did they actually build it on the sites? And then I wanted to see the effects on trees. Trees can take up to 5 years to show signs of stress or decline from development. So I wanted to make sure that we were providing enough time for the houses to be built and to see what's happening to the trees. Here's a different view of the sites that we pulled. So all the information is from neighborhoods that were established 1970 and prior, allowing 55 years for the trees to establish. The community canopy here, the community canopy exceeds city targets. And these have been targeted by densification by the Calgary plan because they have existing infrastructure, including light rail transit connectivity. They're larger lots, which makes it easier to develop and to build out into dense, more dense builds. And there's existing infrastructure, the roads, everything. So the data that I want us to focus on here is our housing development type, so single, semi-row housing for residential, impervious surface after, so looking at planting space. This is an example of a site block plan, so when somebody wants to build a home, they submit this, the city sends it out for review, and then we can make changes, or request changes depending. This is the Parks Recreation Information System, PARIS. It's tied to Esri GIS. This is how I was able to pull satellite imaging, aerial imaging, and historical satellite data. This is an example of a single detached house that we'll go through. This is the satellite imaging. You can see it highlighted here. This is the historical aerial imaging. This is before, this is after. You can see in the yellow square that the size of the house has changed as well as the impervious surface. This is the pictometry layer. I was able to use this to better measure certain components of it. I can rotate 360 on this so we can assess the impervious surface and planting space. This is the street view, before on the left, after on the right. Well, let's notice the impervious surface. So surface cover change. On this, with the data, so Wilcox and Sand rank test, and I did a Friedman test because the data was non-parametric, and then paired t-test. Significant values were returned for the impact of all development types to pervious and impervious surface change. They are inversely correlated, so as you have more of one, you have less of the other. Semi-detached before and after, row houses before and after, and finally multi-residential before and after. There was not a significant value on as a predictor for which type of housing has a greater impact on impervious surface. So not a statistically significant. But each one was shown to be statistically significant for impacting impervious surface. Okay. So on the build type, this is the dwelling units per hectare, which is a measure for density. This is all as expected. Your semi-detached is half of your semi-detached. Your row house is 4 times your single detached, and then our multi-residential is 5. And on the right is a better visualization of what's happening for a planting space across each dwelling type. So single detached, semi, row house, residential, and we're seeing this reduction in planting space. That's supposed to be animated for comparisons. So this is off the development guidelines and center specifications sheet from the city of Calgary, indicating we need 10, 20, and 30 cubic meters of soil for small, medium, and large trees. What I want us to draw out here, and based off the data, is with the land use bylaw, if you have a semi-detached, you need to plant 2 to 3 trees. With a semi and row house, you have to plant 2 trees per housing unit, and with multi, 1 tree per every 45 meters squared. With the semi-detached and row houses, off the new plantable area space after development, post-construction, the only way we would be able to meet these targets is by planting small trees. The large trees, there's not enough space for them. No. This is a map that my coworker did. Excuse me. In red, this is split by neighborhood in the city. If a community is red, it shows that the canopy is actually declined, and then by how red it is, it's by how much. Green are neighborhoods that have gone up in canopy. So the new canopies expanding into farmland have gone up in canopy, but that is based off of they were previously 0. So we have trees that are going in, so they're showing an increase in tree canopy. Whereas where we already have established canopy, it's declining. So if a neighborhood is established, why are we experiencing this decline? So the study neighborhoods exceed the city's canopy target when we started. Population of the city keeps going up. And if we look at the LiDAR data of these canopies, it started 18.5% canopy just in these 1970s and prior neighborhoods. So the data was clean to just show the study neighborhood. And it's decreased by 1.5% in 10 years. So if this continues, we are actually on track to fall under target in the neighborhoods that were meeting the canopy. This is just an excerpt from the Calgary development map. I pulled it last week. And this is just all the active developments in the city right now. And this is the center. So is this a current issue? Yes, it continues to be developed. We're still looking at development sites. Across all development, we looked at a 40% reduction in planting space. The city is losing canopy and planting space is decreasing. The development permits have almost tripled since 2015 off the city database system. This is a number of citywide of just how many developments are being built. So we have more developments for each type. And again, citywide, not in our study neighborhoods. But we're seeing the same trends. So the city has to decide, is shrinking, and citizens have to decide, is shrinking planting space an issue that needs to be addressed? Do the municipalities have to be referees? And is planning policy and management needed to support these goals? If so, let's look at planning. So there's a goal from the Calgary plan for 150 dwelling units per hectare, but there is not a target for how much green space per hectare. This has been noticed in municipalities like Berlin, where they introduced a green area ratio and has since been adopted by Seattle. So on a parcel that's being developed, they have a rating system or a green area ratio for green infrastructure, how much planting space needs to be retained on these parcel conversions. And then other municipalities have restricted the size of buildings in relation to the dwelling units, not parcel size. So right now with the land use bylaw in Calgary, the amount you build out a parcel is based on your parcel size as a percentage, as opposed to how many dwelling units you have. And going back to that idea that a single dwelling unit off a single detached does not help meet densification goals, whereas a multi-residential will. We have to consider the densification initiatives as well as the parcel. Canada is in the top 4 countries for largest dwelling unit size per person, next to USA, Australia, and New Zealand. So we have bigger homes. Another recommendation would be continuous soil space on parcels. The row house picture on the right, the walkways do not allow for continuous soil space. So by even allowing the designs and keeping the builds as is, there are ways to optimize these designs through planning. So how do we get continuous soil space so that we can plant these larger trees? So little adjustments like that would benefit the cities. Recommendations and policy. So land use bylaw amendments could be made that discuss the size of tree that has to be required. So by having these larger trees for greater canopy. Maintaining tree counts. So you do have to plant those trees on the parcel as part of your development permit, but there is not legislation for maintaining it long term. So you could look at something like that. And then hardscape versus softscape, up to 50% of the landscapable area of a new development, so that's the outside space, can be hardscape. That's patio stones, decks. So by further restricting that, allowing the builds as is and increasing planting space could be a way to optimize it. Don't have to read all of this, but there's a lot of policies. It's not that simple. And you can't just say, okay, we need more trees, write a policy about it. All of these policies in some way relate to trees. So one city, one voice, we have to be looking, the city has to be looking at a unified front. How do we integrate this across all different policies? There is no private tree bylaw, but again, it's not that simple. The city would have to look at all of these other options and all of these other policies and how to integrate them. Tree protection zones, management on the site level. So as development continues, it's looking at horizontal tree protection for future rooting space, preventing compaction, protecting the asset you already have. Protecting mature trees and the trees that you already have is the best first step to maintain. Future studies, this is an impervious surface layer. There were omissions in it, so I manually measured my sites off of satellite imaging because the impervious surface area on this map had omissions. But as data gets better and a potential scaling up, as this gets more accurate, as technology improves, you can actually do this on a much larger scale very, very quickly. And as a way of sizing up and then looking at impervious surface as a leading indicator, whereas looking at canopy is often a lagging indicator as it takes time to change it. I'd like to part with this quotation. This came up from Chi Young Jim, an urban forester of Hong Kong. Humanity attempts to find an alternative and elusive urban growth paradigm that departs from those that have been used for millennia. Speaking to it's hard to work within this system and people. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So it's my understanding that Paul Atkinson, the urban forestry lead for the city of Calgary, is joining us remotely from Calgary. And is he going to speak? Yeah. Okay. Over to you, Paul.
Jeremiah, great job. Thanks everybody for
You can't hear him.
Hang on a second. We just gotta unmute you, Paul. Thank you. Try again.
Oh, the number of times Jeremiah would want to put me on mute, hey? Jeremiah, great job. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you for putting this together. And I guess I was tasking myself with making sure I had a follow-up question for you. You were very thorough in your presentation there and answered a lot of the questions throughout the way. So Just